Today, in this episode, we're going to be talking about why perfectionists struggle with binge eating and how to stop perfectionism-related binge eating in this video. So let's get started. So let's talk about where perfectionism first of all comes from. So maybe when you were younger, you had an older sibling. You probably had what's called golden boy syndrome. So your older sibling was amazingly better than you, getting good grades, loved by everyone, loved by friends, and you were just left on the sideline. And your parents or your loved ones when you're growing up were pushing you, oh Jonathan, you gotta be the best, you gotta be the best. Why aren't you more like this person? And that could lead to perfectionism, wanting to be more because you're not enough all the time. You feel inadequate all the time. And the tricky thing with this is that you're always striving for more, and then when you do strive for more, try to be a perfectionist, you hit your goals, then you get yeah, you just get a little nod. You don't get a massive congratulations. So that's your new baseline. High perfectionistic standards is your new baseline. Anything less than that, an A- or a B+, anything that's not A+++, then that's seen as a failure. It's not just, oh, at least you tried. It's an instant failure, and your brain actually adapts to that. So how does your brain adapt to the situation of feeling not enough? Well, essentially what happens in the brain is it just avoids the pain. It just numbs yourself to the pain. So because it avoids feeling short. Your brain wants to achieve all of these things, but since it's not achieving these things, then the best it can do is just to numb the feeling and just get on with life, because feeling inadequate is not beneficial as a survivalistic mindset. It's not beneficial to anything. It's just a feeling. It's not really helpful for you to reach your goals. So anything in your mind that's not helping you reach your goals has to be numbed away or just shoved to the corner. And I could talk about how that can lead into binge eating later on, but it's extremely important, first of all, to let you know about the two types of perfectionism. But before I continue on, I just want to first of all let you know about my hunger regulation framework ebook. So this ebook is a free ebook which is in the link in the description, and essentially, why is it called hunger regulation? So when you struggle with binge eating, very frequent binge eating, you're often in a feast or famine. Diet, binge eating, and what it can do, it can mess up your hunger regulation signals. So your ghrelin and your leptin. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone, leptin is your fullness hormone, and you're feeling extremely hungry in the evenings and you don't feel hungry in the mornings. So the hunger regulation framework ebook, which is in the link in the description, which is free for you to download, is completely free, and it gives you a guide on how to start eating in a way that will restore your hunger cues and then help you overcome binge eating. So there are two types of perfectionism. The first one is called personal standard perfectionism. So it's based on your goals. So the goals I set, and I want to be a perfectionist and I want to reach out and be a better person for my sake. And the second one is called external concern perfectionism. A bit of a wordful, but if you call it ECP, then that'll be much easier. So ECP is based on wanting to be a perfectionist, not for yourself, but for other people. You want to impress other people. You want to prove yourself. You want to impress your parents. You want to get the good grades so you can get affirmation from your parents. You want to get that six-pack. You want to lose weight so you can impress and prove other people wrong. That's why many people you often hear about going into monk mode, where you're always trying to be a better person. But to be a better person, you have to avoid society. You have to focus, meditate, go to the gym, not tell people about your goals. This is where the hustle and grind mindset essentially comes from. It ultimately comes from, although many people say it's more of a PSP, you want to be better for yourself, but most of these people have very low self-esteem and they want to prove themselves to other people. So they're actually experiencing the type of perfectionism called ECP, external concern perfectionism. And the problem here is if you're more reliant on ECP, external concern perfectionism, then that can be very sabotaging to your brain, your mindset, and this is the very unsustainable type of perfectionism which could heavily lead into binge eating episodes. So how does this actually lead to the binge eating episodes? So the difference between PSP and ECP, they actually live in the different parts of the brain. They're activated in the different parts of the brain. So the ECP, the external concern perfectionism, which is very unsustainable and you're wanting other people's approval, what actually shows is when it's activated, it actually numbs your brain to think about it. So if you have a mistake, if you make a mistake, let's say you're doing a maths test and then you make a mistake, your external concern perfectionism part of the brain actually disables you wanting to think about the problem. It just numbs it away. And what actually happens here is when you're constantly numbing yourself, because you often let's say you have a good or bad mindset around food. I'm only gonna eat good foods, kale, quinoa, I'm gonna eat quote unquote perfectly, then if you start to eat a donut, for example, because you accidentally ate it because you craved it so much, or you ate maybe a cookie or maybe a piece of chocolate, then the ECP part of your brain actually lights up, and then it disables any thoughts, it disables any emotion. You try your best to ignore it. Your brain tries your best to ignore it. Because if you look back at the start of the video, I actually said that when you're a perfectionist, then if you're not hitting those goals, those perfectionistic goals, brain just tries your best to, well, just numb it away. Anything else that you can't reach, numb it away so you look like and you feel like you're a perfectionist. Your brain doesn't ever want to fall short of not being a perfectionist because your brain has been molded to be this perfectionist. So the thing is, you can't unlearn perfectionism. That's a really hard truth. You can't unlearn perfectionism. So let me explain this in more detail about the difference between ECP and PSP. So researchers actually conducted an experiment and they separated these two people into two groups. One group is the personal standard perfectionism, the PSP, and then the other group was the external concerned perfectionism. And then they had a series of tests where they would actually make mistakes. And what they found in the study is that when the ECP group actually made mistakes, they actually ignored it. But with the people in the PSP, when they made the mistakes, they actually slowed down and they actually thought about it, which is really, really important to remember. The PSP slowed down and they thought about the mistakes that they had, while the ECP actually numbed it away. So I want you to first of all think about this. So you can tell that if you're a PSP or you're an ECP kind of perfectionist by the way you react to your perfectionistic mistakes. So you're likely an ECP if you try to numb away your problems, try to move on, you try to toughen up, quote unquote, toughen up, and then just try to move on. This often comes from, like, for example, when you were younger. Try to look back when you were younger. So when you were younger and you showed your test results to your parents, and then they said, oh, you could have done better. And then you just walk to your room, you don't experience your emotions, you just try to move on, you get straight back to work. You probably do like revenge work where you're trying to study and then tears fall down your face. Personally for me, I'm not an ECP myself, but what actually happened, which is quite relatable, is that when I'd have an exam paper given to me and I've failed like maybe like 15 out of 100 test points, then my parents would actually like get a letter saying like, okay, the results have been given out. And then I would go back to my mom and I'd say like, oh, I didn't receive any test results. Maybe it got like mixed up or something. And then my mom would keep on checking like, oh, did you find it? Did you find it? Did you find it? And then I'll be like, no, I think the teacher maybe like misplaced it or maybe even lost it. Yeah, not sure where it went anyway, but I feel like I did well in the test and everything. So that's the ECP part of the brain showing that I'm trying to numb it away, trying to ignore it, trying to run away from the problems. So the ECP part of the brain always tries to run away from the problems because you know it's going to hurt you. You know you're just going to retreat from it because you don't want to experience the pain of being a failure or not living up to people's high standards. Remember, like, it's either extremely high standards, which is your baseline, where you'll get like, okay, like, all right job, good job, or anything less than 100%, like 99%, you'll be judged like, oh, why did you not work hard enough? Oh, your brother's better than you. You should be more like your sister. You should be more like Elon Musk and all those kinds of things. And then PSP, you could tell if you're a PSP or a personal standard perfectionist, essentially, is if you don't actually care about other people's approval. And I'm not talking about like just hiding away and with a subtle need that you want to go into monk mode and then prove other people wrong, all those kinds of things. You honestly don't really care about anything in the world. You're doing it for yourself. You're pretending as if there's no one in the world. And if you imagine that if there's no one in the world, would you still go to the gym? Would you still eat healthy? Would you still eat regular meals throughout the day? Would you still diet? All those kinds of things. Would you choose to study maths and get like A stars? If you don't think that you're gonna be hitting those goals as if you're the only person in the world, then you're probably leaning towards ECP, perfectionistic mindset. So how does being an external concerned perfectionist actually lead to binge eating? Well, you probably kind of like guessed from these little parts of that I've been talking about throughout the video. But obviously, like, first of all, one of the main things that ECPs often have, which can lead to binge eating, is a perfectionistic mindset. So with food, oftentimes people have this mindset that food is black or white, or good or bad, clean, dirty, sinful, angelic. It's black or white. You're either on track or you're off track. And that's your ECP part of your mind bringing up that food is either black or white. The problem with this is when you add morality to food, or there's an on or off switch, essentially, there are polar opposites, there's polarity with your diet, then that can lead to success or failure. So you could be on your diet, and many people have this struggling with varying degrees. Some people can like brush off like, oh, it's okay, I only ate a bit of chocolate. Some people, oh, I ate a tiny bit of chocolate, I ruined my whole diet, then I'm gonna start binge eating. This can happen at a micro level where like you stick to your diet throughout the day and then you start to have a little bit of chocolate in the evening and then you think, oh, okay, I ruined this. Or it could happen at a bit more of a macro macro level, a larger level. So you stick to your diet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you have an intense craving for like a cottage pie that's very high in calories, delicious, extremely delicious, lots of cheese, there's dessert, it's your mom's birthday and there's lots of cake and everyone's tempting you to eat. Then you just think to yourself, oh, I just ruined it, I ruined my diet, I'll start again on Monday. So this perfectionistic mindset can happen on a micro level and a macro level, and having this on or off or succeed and fail mindset with dieting can actually like lead to numbing your emotions. So when you're binge eating, it's important to know that binge eating is mindless eating. You're numb to any emotions. The only thing you're focused on right now is binge eat, dopamine, remove everything. Everything is ignored from the world. And the problem with this is mindless eating. You're numbing yourself. Your ECP part of the brain, remember, ECP is focused on the brain that numbs your emotions. ECP part of your brain lights up. You start binge eating, mindlessly eating, and then after that you feel extreme guilt, shame, embarrassment, and you want to be better, diet harder, undo all these mistakes. Let's ignore how I feel right now. I need to undo all of these mistakes. So this all or nothing mindset could also happen and also like pop up from a gym point of view, going to the gym. So you promise to yourself, that's it, I'm gonna go to the gym 5 times a week. And then you miss one gym session and you think to yourself, oh, I ruined my whole gym session, I'm gonna start binge eating. And it can happen to so many things in life. When you're so focused on ECP, perfectionism, then even the tiniest mistake, you numb your emotions, binge eat, get that dopamine. Remember, getting the feeling of dopamine is not an emotion. Emotions, if you sit with them, are fear, anger, joy, frustration, anxiety, all those kinds of things. Getting dopamine is not relieving your emotions. You're just getting that hit of dopamine. And the problem with this is you can also trigger emotional eating. So when you're constantly trying to numb your emotions because of the ECP, then you can lead to emotional eating. So emotional eating is oftentimes triggered by not experiencing, not feeling, not sitting with your emotions for a very long time. And then when you're most vulnerable, when everything hits, maybe most of the time many people struggle with emotional eating in the evenings. I want you to think about that. Do you struggle with emotional eatings in the evenings? Are you a perfectionist? Are you struggling with, do you identify as someone with external concern perfectionism, ECP, where you try to do things so you can get other people's approval? You try to lose weight for other people's approval. So emotional eating, going back to emotional eating, it's important to realize that if we try to numb ourselves from experiencing our emotions because of perfectionism, that can lead to emotional eating in the evenings when you're most vulnerable, when your boss has been demanding so much from you, you've been working overtime, your spouse has been shouting at you, your loved one's been shouting at you, you're really pushed to be a better person. Oh, why are you said you were on a diet 3 weeks ago. Why are you not losing weight? Maybe your mom's telling you to be a better person, you should get a better job. All of these emotions pile up when there's nothing to distract you aside from TV, maybe gaming, nothing else in the world, which is why when you're all alone in the evenings, that's when binge eating happens. That's when emotional eating happens, because you're there to sit with your emotions, but it just flows and just overwhelms you. So that can lead to emotional eating, and you use food as a coping mechanism. So the situation might seem hopeless right now as I'm talking about all of these issues. So what can we do if you're mainly focused on ECP? You identify as an ECP perfectionist. Well, first of all, we need to realize that you can't unlearn perfectionism. It's rooted in your brain, and you actually want to focus on trying to be a better person, but any mistake you make, your brain just numbs it out. You can't unlearn perfectionism, but the thing that we can do is we can shift our ECP perfectionism into more of a PSP perfectionism, and there are 2 ways that you can do this. The thing is, if you shift more from an ECP to a PSP kind of perfectionist, where you ignore other people's need, you're doing it for yourself, then you're less likely to turn on the part of the brain that's more ECP, the part of the brain that numbs yourself when you make a mistake, the part of the brain that like runs away, the part of the brain that retreats whenever experiences a mistake, which can look like you're doing everything perfectly, but in reality you're actually broken inside. We need to shift from ECP to PSP. So how do we do that? So there are 2 things that we can do to activate or shift our mindset towards, or shift our brain neurologically, literally. Like the brain actually changes if you shift more into a PSP mindset. So there are 2 things that we can do. The first thing is, remember when I talked about in the study, when people had the PSP mindset, when they made a mistake, they actually slowed down and they actually thought about it. The thing is, when you slow down and think about it, which is not only for people with PSP, we both have PSP part of our brain, both of us have an ECP part of our brain. We both have those things. One is more upregulated than on the other. So we need to downregulate the ECP part of the brain, the one that numbs our emotions, and numbs anything, anytime we make a mistake, numbs everything. And we have to upregulate the PSP part of our brain. So to do this, we have to slow down. When we make a mistake, just slow down, think about it. Don't try to run away. Your brain will find a million reasons to squirrel out, to distract yourself. But like from a binge eating point of view, if you eat a donut, slow down. Don't try to like start a binge eating episode. Don't try to turn your mind into, oh, I made a mistake. What am I going to do? How many calories am I going to now like remove from my diet? How am I going to skip dinner? All those kinds of things. Your brain's going to find any reason to squirrel out and run away from all of these kinds of things. But first of all, when you eat a donut and you recognize, okay, that's a mistake, sit with it. First of all, just think of these things. Think of, what am I feeling right now? What emotions am I feeling? Am I scared? Am I angry? Am I feeling happy? Am I disappointed in myself? Because awareness precedes action. So first of all, stay in this moment and focus on all the things you're feeling right now. Slow down. What emotions are you feeling? What does the food taste like? Is it quite sugary? Am I really enjoying this? Is this quite filling? What's inside the donut? Is there custard? Is there raspberry? Is there strawberry, chocolate, all those kinds of things? Does it bring back any memories? So all of these things, you're trying to train your brain to slow down, and it might be very difficult at first. Your mind might be racing all over the place. It might be extremely scared, anxious, triggering lots of anxiety. So the more you do this, your brain's actually upregulating more of the personal standard perfectionistic part of the brain, the part that slows down. And when you're focusing more on the PSP part of the brain, it's gonna be easier and easier for you to not think about what other people think. It's gonna be easier for you to focus on what you think, because when you're always thinking about ECP part of the brain, like, oh, other people there, like I'm doing this for other people, I'm gonna prove them wrong. You're not doing it for yourself. So what's the point of doing it for yourself? Why would I want to do anything for myself? Why does it matter about how I feel right now? I only care about results. But if you're more focused on the PSP part of your brain, the sustainable, slow type of your brain, the more mindful one, then you're gonna do it for yourself. You're thinking, what do I want right now? Not what other people want, not what Joe, Michael, David, and all these kinds of people that I'm trying to do this for want. What do I want? What am I feeling? Slowing down and experiencing those emotions is telling your brain, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm the important one here. They're not the important ones here. And then you're actually upregulating more of your PSP mindset. And the second part of how to improve your PSP is essentially just try to develop a standard for yourself. So try to set goals for yourself that's quite reasonable. Imagine if there's no one around you in the world. What would you do and how would you do it? Don't do it for other people. Would you still go to the gym? Would you still go for getting the six-pack if there was literally no one else in the world? I know many people who have extremely low levels of energy and they really feel hungry 24/7. They go to bed hungry, trying to maintain a six-pack. What would you honestly do if you're the only person in the world? And maybe you could like try to lean down and lose weight, but ultimately, are you doing this for yourself? Are you struggling with trying to extremely strictly diet, be on a very calorie restricted diet, which is very extremely restrictive, to impress other people at the cost of your own mental health, at the cost of feeling hungry, at the cost of binge eating? Or are you just doing this for yourself? Are you trying to get stronger for yourself? Are you trying to get stronger to live longer? Try to lift weights to feel stronger, feel more accomplished? Or are you trying to run to lose weight for other people? Would you lose weight if you're the only person in the world? Or would you run so you could have more energy to focus on other tasks? Maybe walk to the shops and not feel exhausted all the time. Maybe are you trying to eat for enjoyment for yourself? Are you trying to eat healthy for enjoyment for yourself? Are you trying to be perfect all the time for other people? Are you trying to have a personal standard perfectionism mindset for yourself? So in conclusion and summary of this video, there are two types of perfectionism. Personal standard perfectionism, which is a slow type whenever you make a mistake, and sustainable, and it's more rooted in your personal needs, what I want. That's true self-improvement. Or ECP, external concern perfectionism, where you're trying to do it for other people. When you make a mistake, you retreat, run away, you try to numb your emotions, which can easily lead to binge eating. You should focus on more of a PSP mindset, trying to focus on if you make a mistake, or whatever you call a mistake, we actually create mistakes on ourselves. We try to set our standards for ourselves. But whatever mistake your brain thinks, whether it's eating a donut or a cookie or not hitting your days in the gym or whatever it is, then slow down, be mindful, because remember, anytime that we're mindless, then we're on autopilot. Our brain on autopilot always leads to binge eating. Whenever we're on autopilot, That's mindless eating. Mindful eating is slowing down, engaging the PSP part of your brain, the self-improvement, the true self-improvement, the true sustainable perfectionism a part of your brain. You can't unlearn perfectionism, but you can shift your brain into more of the personal standard perfectionism mindset. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and it's quite a rambly one, but it's really important because perfectionism can easily lead to depression, binge eating, anxiety, trying to be more worthy when you yourself feel unworthy. It can consume your life for all of your life. It's not just a one-time thing that can be sorted out with medications. And many people try to search for the solution, but the solution is just in this video. Focus more on PSP and your life will change. If you really enjoyed this video, check the link in the description for more of how I can help you from my one-to-one coaching, where I can support you at a one-to-one case for tailored dietetic advice, my freebies such as my Hunger Regulation Framework ebook, my Food Freedom course, and many more. And if you really enjoyed this video, I highly recommend that you check this video out where I talk about how to stop thinking about food all the time, and I'll see you in that video. See ya!